It's another podcast for Stam Finds Side Hustle. Today I'm going to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. I mean, Spider-Man's kind of a big thing, isn't he? I mean, every time Marvel seems to be in some sort of rut or poo or financial difficulty, and this is an issue going back decades, Spider-Man seems to come and save their bacon. The latest Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, looks like it's done that again. Now, the first part of this review will try to be as non-spoilery as possible, and then the latter half of this review will be filled with more spoilers than the parking lot next to an open casting session for a Fast and Furious movie. Spider-Man No Way Home had been one of those really big bright spots in the MCU films released after the pandemic. I mean, it was a big hit, and well, I personally loved it, with it easily being my most favourite of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films directed by John Watts. Watts was almost going to return to direct a fourth film, but the gig eventually went to Destin Cretton, who'd previously helmed Shang-Chi, which I thought was an uneven film. I liked it well enough in the first half, but found it fell apart in the back end, which coincidentally enough was pretty much how I fared the last time I went skateboarding. Brand New Day is not as light as the previous three films, but it's still a very fun and enjoyable movie. It's just got a little bit more heft to it. Most films will have a character with some sort of tension, or something they're dealing with, and in the MCU movies, that tension is not always well integrated into the main story. But Brand New Day does manage to do that in a way that makes Peter's problems feel like they are an absolutely vital core to the story. Peter Parker's on his own, slinging webs and working unofficially with NYPD Detective DeWolf. His best bud Ned and his girlfriend MJ have no memory of him, and if you need to know why they have no memory, then you have to go back and watch No Way Home. Peter, however, hasn't forgotten them, and in between the crime fighting, he often feels alone and sorry for himself, so guess what? He checks up on his friends. He's less Peter Parker, the amazing Spider-Man, and more Stephen Stalker, the Stalktacular restraining order man. Seeing his friends moving on with their lives is a catalyst for a major personal crisis for Peter. Also, coincidentally enough, his arachnid DNA has been getting stronger, but now it's threatening to take him over. Going full spider, of course, doesn't sound like that much fun. But also, of course, there's this new threat, and Peter can't quite work out what's going on. Some force can briefly remotely take over a body, but this force can't get into Peter's head. He can recognize it for a time until the spider starts to take over. Peter meets Bill Metzger, the head of the Department of Damage Control. He is someone who very early on signals his reader the words, damage control is not quite the same as the previously accepted definition of the phrase. Frank Castle, that's Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, will act as Peter's reluctant sidekick for part of the film. I mean, they're not buddies, but they're not enemies. They're more like rivals who disapprove of each other's working methods. And there'll be other people in the MCU who we'll talk about in a bit. The force that happens to be able to control people turns out to be a teenage girl with red hair. Brand New Day is a soft reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, one where a slightly older Spider-Man hasn't made too many new friends, so he tries to reconnect with his old ones. It also sets into motion the integration of one of Marvel's most successful group of characters that, so far at least, has mostly been excluded from the MCU, multiverses aside. Also, let's be thankful, there are no multiverses here. Though there are crossovers. I mean, lots of crossovers. I mean, everyone loves crossovers. You like crossovers. I like crossovers. So there are quite a few crossovers with other MCU characters here. Brand New Day feels a little different from the last three Spider-Man films stylistically. A lot more of it is in someone's head, for one thing, with lots of visions and memories and nightmares and people taking little strolls through somebody else's mind. Peter's estrangement from his friends precipitates a crisis. He doesn't lose his powers, but they are changing, and he will need to work very hard to try and control these powers before they control him. If he's not careful, he will go from being a man with the powers of a spider to a spider with just two legs, but one who crucially retains an unhealthy interest in hiding underneath a pile of dirty laundry. The returning cast are all around 30 while playing college-age kids. So this movie is less teenagery, which is handy since it is starting to become a reach for this cast to play people around 20 or 21 years old. So as part of that, the overall presentation is more mature, even down to the title sequence and fonts. Michael Giacchino's music is there, but it's less front and center this time around. I've listened to some of it separately and it's quite good, but in the movie, the music is sort of mixed in a way that it doesn't really draw attention to itself as much as perhaps it could. I mean, I like a big, bold orchestral score myself, and sometimes I even like to hear it. But you could also argue the music here doesn't ever overpower the film. It's a superhero movie released in 2026, so of course there's a lot of CG. I only really noticed one short effect shot of Spider-Man swinging that didn't look quite that great. Most of the time, the effects looked a lot more real. And it's not necessarily the action scenes that look fake. It's the fact that a lot of the outdoor scenes use a lot of special effects to make you think these characters are having conversations somewhere outdoors in New York City. Brand New Day was filmed in the UK with interiors shot at Pinewood Studios and exteriors shot around London. So many of the exteriors have a very indoors look. Whether these scenes were green screen or stagecraft, it doesn't really matter. The film never looks terrible, it's just that there's a particular vibe to the visuals. It looks enough like New York, which I suppose is the main thing. I did find it semi-ironic, only semi-ironic, that they shot a scene on top of Silvercup Studios in New York on a soundstage at Pinewood. So I usually like Spider-Man movies. I'm not a big comic book reader, but I do like comic book films when they're good. So I liked Sam Raimi's films with Tobey Maguire. I was ambivalent towards the two Andrew Garfield films. I hadn't minded the Spider-Verse movies, and have mostly enjoyed the Tom Holland movies. I really like No Way Home, but overall they're okay. I was always going to see this movie, but I don't think I even watched a trailer. I went into this pretty much blind, no hype at all. And I wasn't really getting a sense of this massive pent-up demand for a big Spider-Man movie. And then boom, it's not even been out a week and it's hitting $1 billion in worldwide box office without even breaking a sweat. It really helps that it's an enjoyable film. So this is the point where the podcast kicks into full spoiler mode, the part where we'll talk about who Luke's father is, who killed Laura Palmer, what happens when you forget to type in those numbers, and why Charles Foster Kane just didn't buy himself a sled factory. John Bernthal as Peter's rival in crime fighting, Frank Castle, a role he first played in Netflix's Daredevil series before getting his own spin-off series, The Punisher. Bernthal playing an angry guy? I never. I suppose that's range. He also gets a few scenes to subvert that image. Bernthal and Holland play off each other really, really well. The Punisher wants to blow things up and shoot people, while Spider-Man is trying to avoid shrapnel. Peter consults with Black Widow, so Florence Pugh makes an appearance in a few scenes. This is a fun film, but it's not an overtly funny film. But one of the most fun parts of this movie is the way that Peter tries to hide his identity. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner returns. At one point, Peter consults him incognito, because obviously Banner's forgotten who he is. And then later, Hulk returns, where he's under the control of the villainess. Tramell Tillman from Severance is Metzger, where he's again playing a character who's smooth and civil, but really does have his own agenda. There are also a few fights with Michael Mando as Scorpion, and a welcome appearance from Marissa Tomei as the late Aunt May. Jacob Batalon as Ned has a chemistry with Holland, where these two are the most believably nerdy best friends in movie history. And of course Zendaya, who's going to be in some of the biggest movies of 2026. They have a great chemistry, even when the characters don't rekindle their romance in this film. Also, they're a married couple, so arguing comes very easily to them. And as two movie stars who are appearing in some of the biggest movies of 2026, they're going to have some of the smuggest Christmas updates ever.
So what did you two get up to this year?
Oh, about 3.8 billion.
Brand New Day is also the point where the MCU introduces new versions of characters from X-Men. And this time, it's in our universe, not a multiverse. So the teen girl turns out to be young Jean Grey, a powerful telepath who's got issues with the Department of Damage Control. Namely, they kidnapped her older sister. The internet's obviously amused at the idea that the actress playing her older sister was actually much younger than Sadie Sink. Sink is looking more and more like one of the big breakout stars of Stranger Things after Millie Bobby Brown. And as a tangent, I really should get round to watching the final season of Stranger Things, however it turned out, since I've loved that show since the beginning. But the more I leave it, the more I lean towards just getting that really sweet looking 4K UHD set. It may seem odd, but I do cycle my subscriptions to streaming services, so I don't have an active subscription to absolutely everything all the time when I can't watch it. I, like everyone else, am going to be very interested to see where they go with X-Men. X-Men was like Spider-Man. They were both worth more than any other Marvel property in the 90s when Marvel Comics wasn't doing very well financially. Now, not doing very well is code for doing spectacularly shitful. So Marvel hocked off the rights to X-Men and Spider-Man to Fox and Sony respectively. And then a decade or so later, the MCU blew up big with characters that had long been considered to be B tier. And then things really kicked off. Disney bought Marvel and eventually Fox. While Sony had done well enough with Spider-Man until Amazing Spider-Man 2 did not do the sorts of numbers that Sony had hoped for. Hence, the deal with Marvel, where creative control was under the aegis of Kevin Feige, while Sony produced the films. That's been an arrangement that has mainly worked well for Disney and for Sony. But it also means we have those other Sony projects using characters from the Spider-Man catalogue that are, well, I'm not necessarily a huge fan. I know Venom has its fans, but the other films, Madam Web, Morbius, Craven, the slopcore movies, just have less appeal to me than flying in a pressurized cabin with a head cold. You can never really tell what's going to land with an audience. You can read a script and it reads really, really well, but the movie turns out badly, or is marketed badly, or just released at the wrong time. Or you can see a script that's terrible and half finished, and the movie turns out fantastic. It's a gamble. It always has been, and it always will be. So the only way to see if something's going to connect with an audience is to put it in a theatre. Now that's real audiences, not the grifters on social media who like to drum up hate campaigns on everything before release, yet somehow mysteriously their enthusiastic audience continues not getting laid. It's the darndest thing. There are films you think will do well, and films you hope will do well. Then there are ones that just tank. But Spider-Man is Spider-Man. So there's that. There's an inbuilt audience of all ages. So as it turns out, when you make a really good Spider-Man movie, or any movie really, a lot of people will turn out for it. It suits me because I sometimes need a really good reason to actually get myself organised to go and see a movie in a theatre. And I like it when I'm repaid with a really good movie. Also, if you live in Australia and you go to event cinemas to see Brand New Day, you might have a quiet chuckle at a certain minor plot point in this film. In summary, we've got an older Spider-Man with Tom Holland finally not looking like a child auditioning for the coveted role of the Lindbergh baby. We have some touching scenes when he finally interacts with the friends that had forgotten him. There's a great team up with the Punisher, and appearances from various MCU favourites. And of course, a new Jean Grey. Brand New Day has enjoyable direction from Cretton that's different enough from John Watts' style. This is a film that doesn't end with 2 hours of fights, and it's all the better for it. There is a lot of action, but there's a longer than usual epilogue after all the big action scenes. And then there's that last scene before the credits. I think I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this compared to my expectation. I had seen some I had scanned the review headlines where most were pretty glowing, but then you see one or two that aren't 100% positive, and I was worried that this was going to be just an okay film. It turns out that's not how I would react to this movie. So to wrap it up, it's a really enjoyable film. Probably even a good one. A really good one. And it's one that has a little more heft than most Spider-Man films have had in a while. If you've enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe or check out some of our other videos. Stam Finds Side Hustle has reviews on movies and television from the 90s to now. And on our main channel, Stam Fine, we have lots of reviews of television and movies from the 60s, 70s and 80s.